At 5:00, the silence over southern Russia broke without warning. 6 Ukrainian Beaver drones lifted off from Karen, heading straight toward a Russian airbase north of Silvestol, a facility known for hosting several rare BE-12 aircraft. Moscow would rather keep far from harm. A Tor M2 air defense battery positioned 12 kilometers away detected them almost instantly. On the radar screen, 6 contacts bloomed at once. To the operator, it looked simple. 6 drones, 16 missiles. On paper, those were excellent odds for Russia. The kind of scenario air defense doctrine promises to handle with ease. But Ukraine was not interested in playing the numbers game. What followed was a lesson in distraction and timing. The first pair of Beavers climbed aggressively to the north electric motors, drawing maximum power and flooding the air with electromagnetic noise. Radars across the area lit up. That was no accident. These drones were designed to be seen. They were bait. 30 seconds later, like a magician drawing attention to one hand, while the trick happens with the other, another pair launched near Berislav. These stayed low, quiet, thermal cameras turning the darkness into a clear map of heat and shadow. Meanwhile, the final pair weighted engines warm, a countdown ticking away set weeks earlier by planners who understood that air defense systems, like people, can only focus on so many threats at once. Now the Tor commander faced an uncomfortable reality. Doctrine demanded 2 missiles per target for a 90% kill probability. By the book, this should have been an easy intercept. But the book did not account for Ukraine's play. The radar showed the drones spreading out, each pair taking a different vector. The northern pair climbed to 500 meters loud, aggressive, practically screaming, "Shoot me," in the electromagnetic language. The middle pair stayed at 100 meters, pushing straight south, as if the Tor did not exist. The southern pair did something stranger. They turned southwest, away from Crimea, away from any obvious target. It made no tactical sense, and that is where things got interesting. The launcher rotated north and elevated. 2 9M338 missiles erupted from their tubes. Inside each missile, a computer smaller than a smartphone, we calculated intercept angles, closure rates, and predicted where 2 drones flying at 150 kilometers per hour would be in 28 seconds. For the first 8 seconds, the missiles flew blind, following ground commands. Up, up, level out, slight left. Then their seekers went active. X-band radar flooded the sky hunting for targets. This was the exact moment the northern Beavers had been waiting for. The instant their radar warning receivers detected the shift from search mode to track mode, pulse rates jumped from 300 to 1/800 per second. The drones dove, not a gentle descent, but a sudden plunge toward the ground, trading altitude for survival. The missiles tried to follow, but they had been programmed for high-altitude intercepts. Now they were diving at 60 degrees control surfaces, screaming, pulling 30 Gs to make turns they were never designed for. At 20 meters altitude, low enough to skim street signs, if there had been any, the Beavers leveled out. Above them, 2 very expensive missiles were having an existential crisis. Their seekers, designed to see aircraft against empty sky, were now staring at ground clutter. Fence posts, metal roofs, puddles reflecting radar energy. At Mach 2.5, the Doppler filters could not separate motion from noise fast enough. It was like trying to read a book while sprinting through a library. 12 seconds after going active, both missiles gave up. Their computers declared no valid target and triggered self-destruct. With those missiles gone, the Tor crew shifted focus to the southern pair. There was just one problem. The southern pair had disappeared. Not literally. Drones do not vanish. But to the Tor's radar, they might as well have teleported. The southern pair had done something boringly brilliant. They found a gap. The Tor radar sat on a slight rise, giving excellent coverage north, south, and east. To the southwest, however, a gentle valley created a radar shadow, starting 3 kilometers from the battery. Every radar has blind spots. Terrain curvature of the Earth and electromagnetic physics guarantee it. Ukrainian drone operators had studied satellite imagery and elevation maps for weeks and found that gap. It was only 400 meters wide at ground level and narrowed rapidly with altitude. Above 50 meters, the Tor could see everything. Below 30 meters, trees and buildings caused interference. But between 30 and 50 meters, for exactly 400 meters of lateral space, the Tor was blind. The southern pair threaded that needle at 35 meters altitude, flying by GPS coordinates memorized like a prayer. One wind gust, one small error, pushing them 200 meters left or right, and they would have lit up the radar like neon signs. But Ukrainian operators had been threading needles for 3 years. This was just another day at the office, assuming your office involved flying explosives through invisible gaps in air defense networks. The middle pair had problems of their own. With the commander focused on the vanished southern drones, the assistant operator took initiative. 2 more missiles left the tubes programmed from the start for low-altitude intercept. No climb, no delay. They went straight for the throat, accelerating horizontally like cruise missiles. The middle pair detected the launch and did something no manual ever recommended. They turned toward the Tor, maximum throttle. Diving to gain speed, they aimed directly at the launcher. This was not courage. It was math. The Tor M2 was designed in the 2000s to fight 1990s threats. Cruise missiles, attack helicopters, fighter bombers. Nobody in the design bureau imagined 6 consumer-grade drones charging straight at the launcher. Every air defense system has a minimum engagement range. For the Tor, that range was 1 kilometer. Inside that bubble, missiles could not arm their warheads safely. Safety protocols would not allow detonation close to the launcher. It was like a long-armed boxer fighting someone who insisted on hugging. All that reach becomes useless once the opponent is inside your guard. The middle pair would hit that 1 kilometer bubble in 36 seconds. The missiles already in flight had been programmed to intercept at 3 kilometers. Now their computers desperately recalculated, trying to hit targets accelerating toward them instead of away. The missiles pulled extreme Gs. One missile's control surface tore free, sending it tumbling through the night like a 100-kilogram lawn dart. The second missile managed to turn, but faced a different problem. It was now chasing targets flying toward its own launch point. Safety protocols kicked in again. No Russian missile was allowed to endanger its own battery. The weapon self-destructed 800 meters from the Tor, close enough for the crew to feel the blast wave. The Beavers flew on electric motors, humming, having beaten one of Russia's most sophisticated short-range air defense systems. Not through stealth or jamming or exotic technology, but through math and physics. The kind of creativity that comes from having fewer resources than your enemy. The only problem was Russia had a lot of resources. The 6 Beavers crossed into occupied southern Ukraine at 05:17 a.m. Everything immediately became harder. The Buk M3 battery at Novokakhovka had been tracking them for 6 minutes already, following their heat signatures through its 9S-36 radar. This was not a unit caught off guard. This was a prepared position with a commander who had been fighting drones for 3 years and had the experience to prove it. The book launched without warning. No search sweep, no acquisition phase, just missiles in the air. But these missiles behaved differently. They did not arc upward. They flew flat, screaming straight at treetop height. The book was using its signature trick, track via missile. The missile itself acted as a forward radar relay, extending the battery's vision by 40 kilometers. The missile flew toward the drones at Mach 3, while simultaneously painting them with radar and feeding data back to the ground station. Hunter and spotter combined. A 700-kilogram flying radar station that ended its mission by exploding in your face. Ukrainian operators had exactly 18 seconds to solve the problem. The lead operator spotted salvation in a grain elevator, one of those massive concrete towers scattered across the Ukrainian landscape. The drone dove hard, trading altitude for speed, aiming for the narrow gap between the elevator and its loading structure. The missile followed, its seeker locked on transmitting updates every tenth of a second. But missiles built to kill fighter jets were not designed for urban obstacle courses. The missile detonated into the terrain. Smoke filled the air. 5 beavers emerged. One drone was struck by debris, a steel fragment the size of a refrigerator, clipping its wing and sending it cartwheeling into a field where it exploded in a small, unsatisfying fireball. Even that small victory did not feel like a win. The book commander watched his screen with the look of someone who knew he had been beaten, but could not prove how. The system could track 36 targets, engage 6 simultaneously, and react in milliseconds. But the beavers were not playing by the rules. The remaining drones crossed paths, merging radar returns into a single blob, then separating again. The computer constantly recalculated. Left or right, J. High or low. Each recalculation took 1.2 seconds. With 5 drones swapping positions, that meant 6 seconds of confusion every 7 seconds. In daylight, at 05:20 a.m., the electro-optical system could not distinguish drones from morning haze. Thermal mode only worked at 8 kilometers, and by the time the drones appeared as faint white dots, they were already inside minimum engagement range. The book went silent. Not broken, not jammed, just defeated. The commander radioed his report. 5 UAVs continuing south, unable to engage due to technical limitations. Military language for they outsmarted us. At 05:35 a.m., the drones entered the S-400's domain. The S-400 did not play games. Designed to intercept ballistic missiles at extreme range, its radar could track a golf ball at 200 kilometers. Its missiles could pull 20 Gs at Mach 14. Using it against drones was like hunting mosquitoes with a sniper rifle. Overkill, but still lethal. Except it had a problem. A quiet, embarrassing problem baked into its software back in 2007. The velocity gate filter ignored anything moving under 100 kilometers per hour. Not adjustable. Not overridable. 3 drones slowed to exactly 95 kilometers per hour. To the S-400, they stopped existing. Radar contacts flickered. On one sweep, gone the next. Back again displaced. But S-400 systems never operate alone. Short-range Panzer units were repositioning toward Kachcha. In 8 minutes, the airbase would be fully covered. Then Russian aviation intervened. A routine military transport from Moscow began descent toward Silvestol at 05:41 a.m., flying directly along the drone's required approach vector. The S-400 could not engage within 5 kilometers of an aircraft with a transponder. Another hard-coded safety rule. The beavers tucked in behind the aircraft like ducklings close enough to block engagement far enough to remain safe. For 8 minutes, they enjoyed a shield made of lawyers and international incident prevention. By the time shouting stopped and thinking resumed, the beavers were diving toward Kachcha at maximum speed. Behind them, the transport landed safely, never knowing it had played escort. At 05:46 a.m., a Panzer S-1 arrived at Kachcha. The crew barely had time to deploy. Forget the stabilizing jacks. They fired from the wheels. Accuracy dropped to 60%. The first missile veered off and self-destructed. The second missile hit 2 drones. The cannons opened up. Tracers filled the sky. 2 minutes. 800 rounds. 0 hits. Then the remaining beavers went terminal. One struck a BE-12. A shaped charge focused molten copper through fuel tanks and into parked aviation fuel. The explosion was thorough. Another hit an Mi-8 helicopter. Ammunition cooked off like angry popcorn. The Panzer was blinded by debris impacts. The final drone circled once, recorded the damage, then dove into the second BE-12. Mission complete, Titan Navy.